And what's up, Utah? Welcome back to We Are the People. This is your host, Jason Preston. And want to thank you guys for all the support. It has been a absolute insane journey since this lawsuit and everything going on. And we will keep you updated on that. I do want to ask you guys, first I want to thank you guys for your support financially. We're still trying to get the retainers covered. So any help we can get there, we still very much appreciate. But we appreciate the prayers. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the sharing. This is how we win. They know that their strength is in the court system. Our strength is in the public domain, and we are going to fight this war on our terms as much as we can. So please, that means you. That means you guys are fighting. It means you guys are sharing. We are relying on you to win this. So please continue to help get this information out to people. So today we're going to be talking about the top 5 bills. There's a lot going on, and that's why I didn't want to get too distracted with this lawsuit, because there's a lot happening in your backyard. You have control there. We can rein these people in. These reps work for us, and we need you to stand up and put pressure on them. But before we jump into that, please go to our website, subscribe. We know we're on dangerous ground with the people that we're fighting against. Our channel's been taken down before. It can happen again. So please go to our website, wearethepeople.org, subscribe. If you want to donate there, you can donate there. But please make sure you're subscribed so that if they take content down, we can still get stuff out to you. Now, I want to lead into today, and we have a couple amazing people on address. I'm going to introduce them in just a moment, but I want to lead in today with what's actually going on. We have sexual predators running free. We have the DA. You've seen, I'll play the little clip right here of him talking about how you can train a girl to give oral sex the same way you train a dog, and then he giggles about it.
How do you train a dog to roll over when it's time to roll over? You do it by giving a reward and repetition. If a man wants to program some little girl to give him oral sex anytime he wants to, you start young and give rewards. It's unfortunately I've never, it's the same way you help a child learn how to make their bed.
You've got Nate Blowden. You can see the post right here, where Nate Blowden is talking about a young boy dressed as a girl, dancing in front of audience of men, and Nate Blowden, who's one of your state senators, talking about how this kid's got moves and promoting. You've got, Libs of TikTok pointing out what in the world's going on in Utah. Well, is it any surprise as we lead into today's show of the top bills that there's a bill which is SB 155 by Todd Weiler, who is coming under fire as he's putting out a bill that would, let's actually look exactly at this bill right now.
A Utah Republican state senator, Todd Wheeler, has introduced a bill that would change the sex offender registry requirements for certain offenses, going from lifetime to only 10 years. That includes human trafficking for sexual exploitation, sexual abuse of a child, sexual exploitation of a minor. This was his justification. Roll this.
This is like my 3rd or 4th attempt at the sex offender database, only because I keep on getting contacted by these families saying, we feel like this has become a lifelong sentence and we don't think it's fair.
Shamika, it wasn't fair to the child either.
If guilty and don't come raid my house was a picture in the dictionary, I think it would look exactly like him. This just looks very suspicious to me. Some things I think you should stay quiet on, and this is one of those things. I kept looking through this to see exactly what his stance was, thinking, okay, maybe he's saying if she was 14, the guy was 19, because we know of situations like this all the time. But that's not what he's pushing for, and I just couldn't understand why he would take this stance as a man that should support or that should protect children. It just was very ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely crazy to me.
Sexual abuse of a child, human trafficking for sexual exploitation, and sexual exploitation of a minor to even child porn. He's tried to do this 3 or 4 different times. in a state where this type of stuff is running rampant, where we have predators that appear to be in the highest levels of power, it's no surprise that we've got legislators trying to lessen the penalties for these type of crimes. So, that's one of the ones. And in fact, hopefully you see the billboard. I'll put it up here. We've got this up right now. This is you guys, by the way. This is not, this is you guys funding this stuff, but we're trying to make sure the people in Utah know what's going on. And so thank you guys for helping support that. Yeah, so today's show is actually sponsored by Jennifer Brown. Jennifer Brown, thank you. Right now, so much of our funding is going to cover the cost of the lawsuit. So those of you who are still trying to help us cover the cost of the shows and billboards, we need that too. We cannot step down and let, that's what they want. They don't want this stuff getting out. So we're relying on you guys to stand and stop this stuff. So God bless you guys. Thank you for being in the fight. Now, I'm going to welcome, they don't need an introduction. If you go to our website, they go to our YouTube, we've had these two ladies on a ton of times. There's a reason I bring them on. I respect them. They've been deeply inside the system, especially inside the state school board. They understand the workings of what goes on, how bills are passed, the garbage that gets played, the way that they put a bill out there that looks good on the surface, and underneath it, it's absolutely rotten. So the two gals I trust, and let's go ahead and let's welcome Natalie Cline and Monica Wilbur.
Hi.
Welcome back, guys.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Yeah, we love having you guys, and I know our audience loves you. They know you, so thank you for being back here, and talk to us about what do you guys see as the top 5 bills that are most concerning to you guys?
Oh, gosh. There are so many bills, and it's really hard. Like, we're in a tsunami, so, picking, 5 out of 600?
So far, 600 so far, more to come. So it's kind of a tsunami. They like to overwhelm the system, so it makes it hard for the average person. Even those of us that are more tuned in, it's really hard to keep up with. So whether or not these are the 5 worst, we can't say for sure, but these are ones that are on our radar. But first,
I want to just add this. I'm going to let you guys run, because I think our audience needs to know this, because this is a real problem. There are so many bills that go through that our legislators don't even read them. And we've had Mike Schultz, we've had our reps come on and admit that they're not even reading the bills because they push so many through. And so it's not always that these guys are bad guys. It's just that that's part of the way you manipulate the system. Is you flood so many through, they can't read them, and they rely on leadership and what leadership tells them to do. Is that what you guys see?
Right. So, we've tried working with them, going, ahead of time and bringing our concerns to them. And either they don't have time, or they're listening to other people and they don't know who to listen to, who's going to give them advice, because they don't know how necessarily to read and understand the bills themselves for sure, or do all the research, because again, they're one person and they've got bills coming out their ears, trying to keep up with, and on so many different topics. You can't be an expert on everything. So, we've tried that approach, and to varying levels of success. But usually the bills are going to go through if they're going to go through. It's kind of a foregone conclusion in many instances. Once in a while, you get a surprise. But so we're looking at it from a little different approach this year, and hopefully this will encourage our legislators to be more careful about what they vote for and how many bills they run, because we're going to start sharing what bills passed and what they actually did and who voted for them, so that hopefully all of Utah will know who's voting for the bad bills. And again, that doesn't mean that they intentionally were trying to vote for a bad bill, but we've got to shift things in somehow to change that trajectory, because we're just kind of going off a cliff right now.
Yeah, they're railroading us.
Yeah, we have a huge quantity over quality addiction here in Utah. So many bills. So if it's okay, we'll just go ahead and jump in so we have some slides here, and let's talk about our 5 bad bills. We're just going to focus on 5. They're not necessarily the worst, but they need attention. So what we are dealing with in Utah is basically death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's not like there's one big, huge, awful bill that's going to kill us all. It's just a lot of little bills from here and there, and they put something new into code, and that complicates things or just makes it harder to keep track of. And we have so far over 600 pieces of legislation, and we're only 9 days into the 45-day session. And so we've broken out some areas here that, to help simplify why some of these bills are so bad. Like we have a spending spree bill that increases spending or wastes taxpayer money. Globalist bills that push anti-American agendas that hurt faith and family and freedom. Common ground bills that make bad compromises to appease both sides.
They call that the Utah way oftentimes.
Often, yeah.
But it makes for bad bills.
Yeah.
The disagree better.
Disagree better.
Yes. So then you have the fox guarding the hen house bills that entrusts a government entity to police itself, which is probably not something they're going to do if that's something that is in their practice and that helps them. A Band-Aid bill that signs that slaps a superficial fix on a very complex problem, and it doesn't actually stop the bleeding. You also have the camel's nose bill that introduces big changes incrementally over time, often through pilot programs.
Yeah. And then omnibus bills, they say we're not supposed to run these in Utah, but we do. That ones that pack kind of very topics together, and they kind of force an all or nothing vote. It puts the legislators between a rock and a hard place. Then we have Trojan horse bills. They seem good on the surface, but they hide nasty surprises inside. We have won't stay in your lane bills. They do things that aren't the proper role of government. We have so many of those. And then shaky foundation bills. They try to build something good on existing weak or bad code.
Yes, and then you have your social engineering bills that they use junk science and data to get it passed, experiments or incentives to affect societal change. And then you've got the public-private partnership bills that put government in bed with unelected, unaccountable parties. We see a lot of that in Utah. It's often called fascism. And then you have the red tape bills that grow government power with layers of bureaucracy, regulation, personnel, or language. This is also, it creates redundancy, layers upon layers, so that if you get something out, there's plenty more to make up for what bad thing you did get pulled out. There's more than enough to keep the system going as it was. And then you've got the dumpster fire bill, which is just a bill that's just a hot mess. It often attracts a lot of attention, puts out more heat than light, and it often is used to create a distraction or create chaos in order oftentimes to keep you from noticing what else is happening in the background.
Yeah. So our first bill, top five here, our number 5 bill is Senator Todd Weiler's App Store Accountability Act. That's SB 142. It requires age verification for parents and their children to use certain apps. So we have some reasons why this is a bad bill. First, it's a Trojan horse bill. This is sold as a protection against age inappropriate content in exchange for age, location, and app use data from users. So that's the parents, and that's the children.
Okay, it's also a camel's nose bill and a globalist bill that pushes anti-American agendas because it opens the door to digital ID. They tried this last year with the social media and getting kids to give their prove their age before they got on, and which requires everybody to prove their age and opens the door for that digital ID. So that's a big problem also. They're just coming at it from a different angle, but it's the same basic idea.
Yeah, it's a fox guarding the hen house bill because it entrusts a government entity to kind of police itself, or in this case, whoever the government is entrusting, which is the social media companies with our data.
The App Store.
Yeah, the app stores, these ed tech companies or these tech companies, and there's no way to verify whether our personal data is protected. So they're collecting age, name, all sorts of data off of our kids' phones and off of our phones. Who knows where it's going at that point. And then finally,
this is also a don't stay in their own lane bill. Parents can already restrict apps with existing software. They don't need the state mandating that this happen, just like we don't want the state automatically putting fluoride in our water. right? That's another one. And yet, like, parents want the choice. And so we should also have that with this as well. So it's being sold as kind of a parental rights bill or something that protects children, which parents already can protect their children, and they don't need to have their rights taken away in order to exercise their rights.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so then number 4 is SB 155. It's also Senator Todd Weiler. Sex, kidnap, and child abuse offender adjustments. You just mentioned this, Jason. Remove certain categories from lifetime sex offender registry. It's been assigned to the committee. Not sure if it was heard today or not, but this is a dumpster fire bill. You know, it kind of creates chaos that doesn't need to be there. What it does is it reduces, like you said, it reduces the time to be on the sex offender registry to 10 years for sex trafficking or sexual exploitation, for sexual abuse of a child, sexual exploitation of a minor. And so they're only on the registry for 10 years when they commit crimes in these areas, and they're pretty bad.
Right. And I would be, for one, very interested to see what the stats are currently, what the trajectory or the increase is in sexual crimes of this nature. I would imagine with all of the just the flooding of our society with explicit content, especially for children in the schools and on the internet, pornography is ubiquitous. And if, I would imagine that these kind of crimes are going up exponentially, and this is an effort to bring that number down and make it not look so bad, so that society doesn't really know how bad of the situation we are in. And that is never the right way to go. But it makes sense, because when you have an overwhelming problem, how is a system supposed to stop it and rein it in when it's the genie out of the bottle? It's a tsunami. You can't put up enough guardrails. It's already there. It's just, I don't know what you do about it. But this certainly is not the right direction
and his
to go.
excuse that it's sympathy for some of these predators. They feel like they've changed their ways, and we need to be merciful. Where's the mercy to the kids? Mm-hmm. The kids whose lives are wrecked because you destroy a child. This is the thing I'm talking to victims all the time. You destroy a child, they end up with drug problems. They end up coping problems. Their lives are wrecked, and we're worried about the perpetrators. It's disgusting.
Right.
But that's kind of a direction that our society is going. I mean, we have another, which this is not on our list, but there's a resolution to help prisoners and kind of elevate prisoners. We had one rep that brought a former prisoner that was released by Gavin Newsom onto the floor of the House, and he was given an ovation because they set him up as an example of somebody that is reform. A second chance, a second chance reform, and yet he's a murderer.
Yeah, and this is the problem: is a lot of this looks like compassion, and yet who is it again being really compassionate to? And
the perpetrators,
we have to look at the victims. Yeah, absolutely.
I got no tolerance.
Yeah, it's kind of flipping things around.
Yeah. So number 3 we have on here is HB 281. It's Representative Stephanie Grecius's Health Curriculum and Procedures Amendments. It establishes mental health, sex ed, and health ed requirements. We are getting a lot of flack for coming out against this one. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's amazing," and actually, don't look at that's incorrect on there. It hasn't passed the Senate committee yet. It says that on there, but we'll fix that. But this is a bill that kind of blows out, and it affirms mental health in the schools, and then
mental health therapy, like as normal. Like this is not the proper role of schools.
Right. So first of all, it's a Trojan horse bill. It seems good on the surface, but hides some nasty surprises inside. It is sold as a parental rights bill, but it makes parents complicit in abdicating their role. Once you sign the sheet, then it's okay. Your kid can get mental health therapy at the school, and then the school can come back and notify you maybe, depending on whether you say you want them to continue to notify you or not. At least that was an amendment that was introduced to the bill. It's also a globalist bill. And this pushes an anti-American agenda. It hurts faith, family, and freedom. Basically, it validates the CDC's whole child, whole school, whole community model, making schools the providers for kids' every need. And of course, here it's mental health.
Right. So then you've got, like I said before, they won't stay in their lane, Bill. This is not the proper role of schools. It's not the proper role of government. This is a private sector thing. Parents should be deciding when to take their child to receive this kind of mental health therapy or medical health therapy, because it also includes telehealth. So kids are able to go and have all of those wraparound services, as they are called, right at the school, and they sell it as a convenience to parents, so they won't have to miss work, and kids, so they won't have to miss class time. But really, they're putting it in place so that kids never miss school. You have to go whether you're feeling good or not, because if you're not feeling good, you should be at the school and go to the school-based health clinic or see a nurse over telehealth. That in this bill allows them to diagnose and to provide psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, neurotherapy. They have they're bringing in the licensed individuals now. If you call a behavioral health coach a licensed individual, I mean, it's really loose bar for what counts as licensed these days. But they are allowing that to happen in school and saying, parents have to give their permission, their written informed consent, if it's a practice that has not traditionally been offered in a school. The problem is that they're shifting what is traditional, just like they have with different gender identities, and what the community has typically thought of as normal is they're establishing new norms. So what was traditional, what they're introducing now will soon be the new traditional. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And one of the things I studied back when I was in college, and it really that really was part of what got me so much into politics. I studied the Soviet Union and Marxism. And one of the things that when you study Marxism and study communism is they were very much believed that the child belonged to the state, not to the family. And they believed that mothers and fathers who thought that the children belonged to them, it was selfish, that it was the community's child. And I see so much in our education system. I know you guys have seen this too. You guys brought a lot of this to my attention, where a lot of the ideology that's being taught to our educators is that the child, that is the state, that is the ultimate authority, not the parent. So I can't help but see the parallels where we're pushing, and the school is pulling for more and more territory and more ownership of our children.
Yes.
So I think that's I agree with you. I think that's very concerning. I think the state's gone too far, and we need parents to stand up and push back.
Right, because if a child reveals something in these mental health therapy sessions that reflects poorly upon the child's parent, what kind of problem are we in now? And then
schools are mandatory reporters,
right? So
yeah, do you know another thing that's very concerning me on this? Obviously, again, with all the stuff we've been in with the Hamblin case, with all this, sex abuse in the state. One of the things I'm finding out is there's a lot of these predators move into those counselings and therapists because they're able to catch these victims when they come looking for help, and they end up. I mean, you look at David Hamlin's case. David Hamlin. I mean, how many they were? That's what they did. That's how they captured people. So
he was a therapist.
So I think there's obviously some good therapists, but that stuff, just so many red flags on that.
Sure.
I don't want again. Keep the family is ordained of God. Keep the parents involved as much as possible. The state belongs out of the family.
Right.
I'm with you on that.
Right. And it's a camel's nose bill. If today it's mental health and sexual health, and tomorrow it's who knows what. It's just ever expanding until the parents are completely pushed out, or the parents are made complicit, and they have the parent engagement plans to make the parents think that the school is trying to include them, but really the school is pushing them further and further away.
Yeah. So our number 2 is SB 138, Darren Owens, license plate reader amendments. This allows government to use data from an automatic license plate reader without a warrant. And so they can take that data and they don't necessarily have to have a warrant for the information.
In Norfolk, Virginia, police know everywhere you drive. They can tell when you're driving to work, picking up your kids from school, or going to a doctor's appointment. And many residents aren't happy about it.
My name is Lee Schmidt, and I live in Norfolk, Virginia. I was stationed originally in Norfolk on board the USS Bainbridge, and I retired here just recently. So I was stationed on Little Creek. I was driving to work, and I started driving by these little cameras on poles. And while I was sitting at a stoplight waiting to get to work one day, I took a picture of one. And I reached out to my local council people with the photo of one and just kind of asked, what were they? Well, I got a response back saying that they were the flock cameras, and I started to do a bit of research on them, and I really realized how intrusive they were.
In 2023, Norfolk Police partnered with a tech company called Flock Safety to install more than 170 automatic license plate reader cameras throughout the city. These cameras are different from a red light camera or speed camera, which are triggered by a specific violation. They watch every car that drives by.
Can actually create a traceable path of the car moving through the city as long as it's being picked up by the flock cameras.
Correct. And it would be difficult to drive anywhere of any distance without running into a camera somewhere.
I don't like being tracked every day. I don't like when I drive by the intersection here at Ward's Corner, then being able to tell which way I'm going. There's 4 cameras there. When I researched the cameras, I did learn about them using artificial intelligence. That when you drive by them, it's not just a snapshot of your license plate number. It reads the demographics of your vehicle. It's a brown car, it's got fender damage, and then it can build a profile of where you've been, and that tracking ability is quite nerve-wracking.
Once it uploads driver's information to the cloud, Flock uses AI to create a fingerprint police can use to track the same vehicle as it moves through the city. Flock says its cameras are in more than 5,000 communities across 47 states. Norfolk's police chief commented that the use of Flock cameras in neighboring cities creates a, quote, curtain of technology. Flock's cameras store the data they collect and police can access it without a warrant.
There's no controls on how it can be used. Someone can go out and pull that data whenever they want if they just don't like you. There's no limits or requirements on how often it's audited to see when the police officers have pulled up the information.
In Kansas, police were caught using Flock cameras to stalk their exes. In California, police departments may have violated state law by sharing their Flock data outside the state. And similar databases have been hacked, revealing private data that was offered up for sale on the dark web.
And I'm worried about someone getting in and getting that data and access to the cameras and to be able to know if I'm home or if I'm out of the state. Is it a good time to break into my home? Is it a good time to track my wife? The amount of abuse that can be done by just tracking my vehicle is pretty grave.
This type of prolonged warrantless surveillance is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court has ruled the prolonged use of cell phone location data to follow someone is a search that requires a warrant. And the federal court that covers Norfolk ruled that Baltimore's use of surveillance planes to monitor the city was an illegal, warrantless search. Tracking people everywhere they go is a search, and giving the police arbitrary power to track everyone in Norfolk is unreasonable. That's why Lee Schmidt has teamed up with IJ to file a federal lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of this surveillance program.
With this lawsuit, I hope to end the illegal and unconstitutional surveillance. I hope that my kids don't have to be illegally surveilled, and I hope that other people don't fall to the abuses of the surveillance.
So this is obviously a globalist bill. Again, it pushes an anti-freedom agenda, and it increases the surveillance state. We know, for instance, that this type of technology has been used in England. They have ultra-low emission zones, and they've set up cameras all around this zone, and I think it started out as a 75 square mile area. But if you drive your car into this zone and they have the license plate readers read your license plate. And if your car is one of those cars that produces, I guess, according to their standards, high emissions, then they fine you. They can actually, they'll send you a bill, and they'll, they can follow you as you drive into the zone and out of the zone. So they're called ULEZ zones. And you actually have people there in England who've been pushing back against this. They're called blade runners, and men who've been, taking on masks and shimmying up the posts and taking down the cameras. Yep. Mm-hmm. And this is not what we want. We don't need this in Utah.
Yeah, that's been a big concern. You guys have seen our shows with Chelsea. Utah is very progressive in pushing surveillance. They're not asking us. Most people have no idea this stuff is happening. You saw the video we played here about the dangers of flock. Okay, this is literally legislation to bring it in. If you want this stuff stopped, if you want to have privacy, especially when you think about where we are going with AI governance, and you give and the coming surveillance state, and you hear some of the people close to Trump talking about how when citizens are constantly surveyed and monitored, how much better they'll behave. We don't want that. So stop that in our backyard. I'm 100% against SB 138. This is one you should be lighting up your reps, calling them and saying, heck no, we do not want to go where China is a surveillance state. We do not want you following us everywhere we go and being able to know everything we're doing. And I've actually heard, I don't know if it's true, but one thing that someone said, which could be true, could not, is that a lot of the shift to the new license plate is it's easier to track. The white and black, because it's so easy. And I think they're cool. I got one, and now I'm like, shoot, that's a good point. So 100% SB 130. I'm with you. That is one of the ones that's got to be stopped.
Agreed. Yeah. And then our number one is not necessarily one that people ever come out against, because they do it every year, and it's SB 1. This is the public education budget base amendments. This is the funding for public education. So this isn't necessarily Senator Baldery's fault. They assigned somebody to it. And it's the K-12 education budget appropriation. But, if you look down the laundry list of what we're paying for in public education, it is amazing how many of these programs and these expenditures to different vendors are just wasted money. And so this is one that just grows out our public education system to a point where it's just this bottomless behemoth. It just continues to consume everything in its path. Last year we spent $8.4 billion on public education. That's on higher ed and K-12 ed, that's over 50% of our state budget. It eats up close to 60% of your property taxes.
And isn't it true that most that's going to the administrators? Not only have we administrators making insane amounts of money?
Technically, no, but they do make a lot of money.
The administrators, the superintendents, are most of them are in the $300,000 per year range for their pay, which is an insane amount. Yeah. But if you ever go to an appropriations meeting up at the Capitol, that's where all the stuffed suits come marching in like penguins. It's very much this public-private partnership. It's the ed tech companies. Everybody wants a piece of this pie, because education is big business.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And so it just grows, it's a red tape bill. It just grows the government. You got added bureaucracy, regulation, personnel. This year, the state board is recommending an additional 3% added to the WPU. So that's the weighted pupil unit. That's what the money that the state allocates per student. And so it's like, okay, we're paying 4% right now. That's the WPU, and it has to be adjusted for inflation. And they're recommending another 3%. And so it's just like, when will it ever be enough? It'll never be enough, so it's a spending spree bill. There's so much money that's wasted, taxpayer money that's wasted in education, and it's a camel's nose bill. There are so many pilot programs that get funded through the public education appropriation. Like, let's just kind of experiment. Let's see what happens. So that also makes it a social engineering bill.
Right. Well, and the pilot programs are often just the nose in the tent, and then they expand it, they scale it out.
Like
so
digital
everybody, So they start small, work out the kinks, and then they blow it up. Whether it's, they start in special ed, or they start with youth in custody, or, any number of little niche groups. They'll go in there first, and they'll figure it all out, and then they'll expand it and make it a universal program, considering that all students in the education world, they consider all students as at risk. And so everybody, if it's good for this little minority population, then it must be good for everyone.
Oh, and can I add to that? Competency-based learning, which is grading the kids and assessing them on their, social emotional skills and on equitable standards. That began as a pilot program here in Utah. And despite the fact that there's no evidence to show that it works, Utah State did a study and said, it doesn't improve academic scores. They are nonetheless expanding it throughout the state.
Well, because it grows government, and it's big business. So it's successful in that respect, just not successful when it comes to helping kids
Again, Hitler,
learning.
Stalin, Mao, every dictator in the 20th century, their objectives have been very clear. Get control of the students. If you own the youth, you own the future. Mm-hmm. And I see everything that they're doing with taking control of the education system from the colleges to the preschool. Mm-hmm. That the state is trying to control our children. They want them, and again, the parents have to take back control of their kids. I think we have to push the government out of our schools, out of our children's lives, because they are pushing godless, anti-American propaganda.
Okay,
We're losing our kids.
It makes me think of the old Whitney Houston song, "Children are our future, teach them well and let them lead the way." Like, that's what they're doing. They all of these, there's a lot of pullback right now on all of the agendas with Trump in office, and people are afraid. And so they are acting like, we're not for DEI, we're not for SEL, we're going to fix all these things. But they can say that now, even though they're not really changing it. They're just driving it underground and
coming up with new
terms. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the thing, is they the children are already in that mindset. They've already been trained, and they're already doing the work. They've taken it up as their own cause. So the adults don't have to do it anymore. The kids are leading the way. It's the whole idea behind Mao's Cultural Revolution.
Yeah. So
you can't stop it at that point.
You're 100% right. So just to our listeners, remember what Thomas Jefferson said: we don't have a government by the majority, we have a government by the majority who participate. These reps are your employees. They are out of control. The state is out of control. We have these, what appears to be pedophile, reps, because we're not watching. We're not holding them accountable. We're not paying attention to this stuff, which is why we're doing the billboards. That's why we bring people, incredible people like this on, is to help you, and we need you to help inform your neighbors. Now, hold tight. We're not done, because I've got someone Jen Dredge. She is like lives for this stuff. Probably the best researcher in the state. We don't get her on often because, honestly, she's one of these people I think so important. We kind of protect her a little bit, but she is going to be calling in, and I wanted her to run through some of her biggest concerns. She's going to bring up some things that have not been brought up yet, and I think you will find great value. There's a couple things that you need to know about, including digital ID and what's coming with that, because again, that is one of the something you should be very concerned about. So let's go ahead and call in Jennifer Dredge. Jen Dredge, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, we just talked about what an amazing person you are.
Oh, no, that's very nice.
Yeah. So just so you guys know, if there's ever anything like I need to know something, this is who I go to. Like she and Chelsea are like, I love them. I respect the daylights out of them. So we just went through some of the top 5 concerns we have. And Jen, you've got our audience. They know you're amazing. It's hard. And to our audience, you know, one of the things we talked about, because Jen was very involved in this show, and she said, honestly, Jason, what you really have to do is you need a show on education. We bring the education gals. You need a show on resources and water. You need a show on surveillance. Because all of these different categories have these different bills, and there's so much. So I thought, Jen, can you call in? Can we bring you in the last 15 minutes and have you go through, because you have such a good overview of everything, what you see that are your biggest concerns?
So yeah, just to kind of follow that up real quick, I think one of the problems that we're having with the legislature, as well as just the broad public, they only pieces. You know, if it's the legislature, they're in these certain committees, and they don't realize how other bills necessarily affect other bills, if that makes sense. And so there's a big picture that's missing for the public and for the legislature. And so my number one, goal moving forward that the public should be asking, and so should the legislature, but the public needs to hold them accountable, is who is asking you to run these bills?
Mm-hmm. Like lobbyists, right?
Well, yeah. And I mean, some of them are constituents, right? Mm. Some of them are constituents. But overall, who is bringing you some of these wildlife, water, agriculture bills? I highly doubt that it's random constituents walking up and saying, hey, we want to have sentinel landscape. You know, there might be people saying, I want value for my house, and we're too close to a military base, things like that. But overall, who is writing up those bills? Where is it coming from? Those kinds of things, right?
Right.
Because that's part of a larger agenda, which can directly be tied. I hate to say it because everybody likes to call it crazy, but I think we're past that point now. But that is a United Nations agenda that's part of 30 by 30. So if you don't know that and you can't see that picture, right, then you're going to be passing bills or putting things in that you probably didn't realize you're doing. So, and that goes across the board with most of the natural resource type stuff. So with that said, somebody might think, for example, driver's license scanner bills, the SB 138, which I believe Monica and Natalie hit on.
Yeah.
They might think that that's relatively, harmless, but they may not realize that there's other bills being put in place that go along with it, or appropriations. For example, the digital driver's license, the MDL essentially got, I think, more money today. So they can spend even more money on that program.
Can you tell us about digital ID? Because that's something you see all over the internet. They're like, there's one thing you've got to stop. The last line of defense is you cannot have digital ID. Where are we in Utah? Will you tell our listeners, is that something they should be concerned about? What is going on with digital ID? Do we have it? Do we not have it?
We have it, and we are piloting one of the biggest programs with it. It is terrible, and we don't have any protections up against it. So this is my thing, because apparently we're going to go off the digital cliff no matter what. Like, everybody's just, for some reason, accepting that, and we're just all going to go off the cliff, and it is what it is, and it'll just unleash AI and everything. So if that's really true and we're just going to go off this cliff, then at the very minimum, you have to put guardrails up to protect people's privacy and to respect their choice. So, for example, I will never, ever be okay with a digital ID. I don't ever want one, and I should not be forced into a digital governance style. I don't want it. I want physical in the real world. Thank you. Have a nice day. That's what I want, right?
Right.
So that choice should be an option. If you want digital, I'm not taking it away from you. Go be digital till, your
Go be digital in your smart city. Go in your smart car in your smart city and be digital.
Right. Go do it. Freedom of choice. Have fun. I don't want it. And it shouldn't be forced upon me, because what's going to gradually happen, we always do this, it's the frog in the boiling pot situation. They give you a little bit, and then they take it away, right? They say, oh, you got a choice. Well, nope, no more choice.
The next pandemic comes, and all of a sudden is now we need this to know if you're safe, for your
right,
safety.
Right. Or they do like this whole thing of, oh, well, it's too expensive now to keep the physical option. It costs too much. So, we got to shut that down. It sounds exactly. And we got to stop that right now. So the guardrails have to go up immediately, right now. They should be putting into law, we will always have a physical option. No matter what, we will have a physical option. And you cannot be refused access, right, if you don't give consent to be digital. Because we all know how this works. They go, oh, well, in the fine print over here, you agreed to, sell your soul, basically, over here to jump on a social media app or whatever it is, right? And you can't access it unless you agree to give it all away. And the problem is, for example, I'll just use Google as an example. If you're not ranking in their search engine, well, then what do you do? You know what I mean? What do you do?
Yeah.
So that's not consent. That's coercion and force without actually coming right out and saying we're forcing you into this. Mm-hmm. So I would like us to put those guardrails up before we reach that moment in time where it's it's too late and we're totally all the way in a prison. If we're going to go off the cliff, let's get the guardrails up. Yeah. So that's sort of the deal. And Utah is very far down that road. Utah's leading in certain pieces of it. Utah loves themselves some tech and digital. They love it.
Yeah, well, that's the birthplace of the fourth industrial revolution, right?
Right. So they're, ushering it in. Anyway, so it's, digital is a whole nother ball game, and there's lots of digital bills, but too many to get into here. But the other thing people need to be looking at, because it's often neglected, is people have got to start looking at the natural resource categories. So that's energy, food, water. Obviously, without those, you can't live.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important that we make sure those.
Is there a particular bill that we can have our audience call in about, or that they should respond about?
There's several, but I'll be honest, Chelsea's more the expert in that, arena. But there's several that you could look up. I don't know if she's put out. I'll have to see if she's put out calls to actions on those. But there's several. I don't want to.
Let me ask
you. I know that
this.
she doesn't like Representative Snyder's bill, so you can look up his.
Is there a link that we can put in the show notes for those who want to go dig into this?
Yeah, I think I can probably get that for you. I think there's one that's like HB 48, I think is one of them. Something like that. It might be HB or SB. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Okay. But that's Stacey Snyder's, if you want natural resources. I know she doesn't like those ones. And then the other one is transportation. Transportation, you hear me talk about this all the time. Transportation needs to be looked at.
Why should people be concerned?
I've followed different threads on this and whatnot, and transportation is where they're doing a lot of damage and no one's noticing. So they passed a bill, I think it was 2 years ago, SB 125, that electrified our entire transit system. And I think people again in Utah go, oh, that's cool. We're going to have electric cars. It's going to be great, and railroad, blah, blah, blah. Well, have you ever looked at the maintenance costs for these things? Have you looked at that they don't do well in the cold? You lose a lot of power in the cold. Have you looked at how you have to, like how lithium's made, etc.? I mean, there's a lot going into that that's actually not environmentally friendly as well, by the way, since they like to tout that all the time. I think we really need to just kind of step back and ask some questions, because also trucking is one of the main jobs for people who haven't graduated college and sometimes even high school. It's a high paying job that they can afford to, raise their family on, etc. Trucking will be almost all big business controlled or government controlled if this continues down this path, because they can't afford the cost of electric semis or the batteries or all of the maintenance that goes on with them. So there's big sweeping things just kind of being done in transportation, and I don't know that people have had the full conversation on what could possibly go wrong there and how we maybe don't do that, right? The other thing with transportation is there's surveillance all over in transportation and no one's paying any attention. They're passing air mobility bills, drones, it's just whatever, air taxis because they want that to look super cool for the Olympics. We got to be flying everybody around. But again, who can afford air taxis, right? Is this going to be a government-owned?
The elite sure can.
Yeah, and then the government, is this like another form of mass transit, right? Public transit. And also, what happens if those crash? I mean, I'm not saying car crashes aren't deadly. Obviously, they are. But if the whole goal, remember, is 0 fatalities, I'd just like to know how air taxis help 0 fatalities. Yeah. Which, again, the public needs to start asking how you get to 0 fatalities. It's just, how do you achieve 0?
Well,
yeah.
Put people in a smart city and don't let them drive. Or put them in smart
cars.
Don't
let them drive,
automated
exactly.
cars, AI.
Yeah, but even those could cause accidents, right?
Yeah.
Autonomous driving vehicles.
Any concerns with AI governance? We're seeing such a push for that at the World Economic Forum and the United Nations and even in the Trump administration, which is one of the things that concerns me.
Yep.
What do you see on AI governance, and why should our listeners be concerned about that?
Because Utah wants to lead in it. They've mentioned multiple times that they need to lead in it. They want to lead in it. And they are working very hard to move in that direction. And of course, what's being sold to the people in the legislature is jobs, 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 jobs. This is the future. We have to have jobs. Your kids have to have jobs in order to live here. It's, all that kind of stuff. And I say, well, I do think also like some of the basic skills, so manufacturing skills that have been lost, we could bring a lot of manufacturing back, right, to Utah and to the U.S. That's equally important. It doesn't mean you don't have any machine use in there going on, but I do think there's a lot more human interaction there. And I think we have to kind of think again, big picture. So what happens when you have machines doing everything for you, including farming? What happens? Do you lose that skill set?
Yeah.
How many people can do math in their head now, like the younger generation? Just without the numbers, math in their head.
Right.
We're losing our humanity. We're losing our skill sets. We're losing all of our ability to actually take care of ourselves and survive. It's kind of a big deal. So I really think that we've got to kind of have that conversation. Are we going in a good direction?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that concerns me is we are approaching, the world is changing, is going to change radically with AI, with the fourth industrial revolution, with technology, with surveillance. And again, the government works for us, for the people. They are our employees, and they are making decisions so fast, being influenced by, I would say, not people who do not have your children's interest your children's interest. It's not their top priority.
Right.
Where is the conversation that with us, we the people, with the true owners of this country? Where is the conversation? I don't think our reps are even having the conversations. They're just all these bills being pushed down their throats, and they're just sign because you got 600 bills and you got 46 days, however many it is, and to get them all passed. And there's no conversation, and this is going to dramatically change the world forever.
Well, right, and the other thing that actually some of the legislatures that I've talked to would verify this, but I've told them, I said, can you please take the middleman out of the conversation? You don't need a middleman between you and the people. Stop it. Like these NGOs, these P3s, all this stuff, please stop. Take them out of the conversation, and you start talking to the people, and the people talk to you. We do not need that middleman. And then the other thing is, I'm sure you know this. You can do surveys. You can skew numbers. You can make numbers look however you want. Like really, you can. I polled this many people, and this is the result again. They're making policies based on surveys that sometimes are less than 2% of Utah's population.
Yeah, let's hit that real quick, Jen, because I don't think some of our listeners know, but you have groups like you said NGOs, these private public partnerships. Envision Utah is a perfect example of that, where what they do is they go and they they do the research, and then they come to your employee or rep and say, well, we've done the research and this is what your constituents want. And then they basically say, hey, so you need to be voting this way. And that's when she says they take out the middleman. And I would ask you to share this with your reps, because your reps need to know they don't work for Envision Utah. They work for you. But this is also the problem with our when we the people do not speak up, when we don't pay attention to the bills, like what it leaves a void. Because guess what? The reps are not hearing from you, and what they are hearing from is these special interest groups. And when the special interest groups come with these convincing PowerPoint presentations and they say that's what you want, and you're not calling them up and saying, no, this is not, you can't just blame the rep, and you can't, it's also, we have responsibility here. So Jen, we're about to wrap up. Any other things that you want our listeners and viewers to see or hear?
Yeah, I would just say also on a state level but you also need to be going to your city and county as well and participating there, because it's happening there as well. And then the city and county sometimes tells the state legislatures, I want this, that, or the other, but they're also being presented with, survey numbers, et cetera. So you just need to be involved across the board, both places.
Awesome. Jen, you're amazing. Thank you for all you do, you have done. I don't know many people in the state who sacrifice, and I mean, you know more about the bills than our reps know, and I'm thankfully they've come to depend on you, and you've been able to turn a lot of them around because you've paid the price to do what they should be doing. So anyways, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. So listeners, we're going to wrap this up. You guys are amazing. This is your state. This is your backyard. I'm going to ask, we're going to put a link right in the show notes. Just scroll down to show notes. We're going to put a link in there where you can click, and all you got to do is put in your zip code, and it will tell you who your reps are. This is not stuff that goes to Climate Change Curtis and Mike Lee. This is your state reps who make state law. So find out who your state senator is, and your state rep, and I want you to light them up on the issues that we talked about, if they're important to you. Because again, what kind of government do we have? A republic, if we can keep it. That is what Benjamin Franklin said to a woman when she came and asked him after he signed the Declaration of Independence. And tears were streaming down they were so excited about what they created, and they knew it was so sacred and so special, but their great fear was the people would get lazy and complacent and become like this people in ancient Rome where they just wanted to be entertained. We're on the verge of losing everything, and so many people are saying, well, Trump's in and trust the plan. I'm going to tell you, yes, I believe in trusting the plan. 100% believe, trust the plan. And that plan is the Constitution. That's the only plan I trust. I don't trust giving power to anybody. If you think that Trump's going to come in and save this whole country and fix every single state and complete that is naivety. That is tyranny. Trust the plan, the Constitution, which means pull power from the legislative branch, from the executive branch. Pull it from the federal government. Pull it to your backyard where you can control it. Trust the plan where you have power to make a difference, not you rely on someone else and hope that someone else is going to do the right thing. This is your backyard. You have the power to get the state under control. You are not powerless. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for all the support. Get out there. Let's dig our feet in, because one day we'll look back and wish we gave more. I can promise you, when this country is falling and when we go into these dark times, you will wish you would have fought a little harder. And I appreciate all of you who fight so hard, who give so much, who help us so much. Because at the end, nothing will matter as much as this. God bless you guys, and God bless Utah.